Hello everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio. Remember back a couple weeks ago I said that I would show you what I made using GinaBAhrensDesigns products for gifts to put in those little gel printed envelope bags. Remember that? You guys remember that? Well, I'm showing you now. I didn't want to show the gift until after the people had received it. So this is my second video for the GinaBAhrensDesign team this month. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm getting out some of the Marabou alcohol inks in bright colors. I want bright colors. And I have a piece of something called mineral paper. It's it's made out of rocks apparently. It's non-porous pretty much. It doesn't seep through and it's very thin, so I thought it would be good for this. And what I'm doing is I've laid down a couple of the GinaBAhrensDesigns stencils from her Etsy shop onto the paper, and I didn't seal it down with glue or anything. I want the ink to be able to seep under a little bit to make designs because it just looks really cool. But the thing about this process is you put all the different colors of inks on and then you got to let it dry. So I had to let it dry overnight before I could move on with my project. So I'm using, on one of them, I'm using purples, pinks, and teals, and on the other one, I'm using reds and yellows and oranges and a little bit of pink. Just making bright colored designs with the stencils. You can do this with any colors that you want if you want more subdued colors or whatever. It works really great on Yupo paper as well. I'm also using some of this Marabou alcohol ink called Rainbow. It's got iridescent mica in it. Beautiful stuff. I could probably bathe in it. It's so pretty. And you'll see it in the finished projects. So then once everything was dry, I peeled off the stencils. There was just a tiny bit left, but it didn't really come off. So dry enough. And I wanted to add some black. I didn't want to put black alcohol ink on. I wanted more design. So I'm using one of GinaBAhrensDesigns rubber stamp sets. This one has a lot of little tiny pattern pieces in it that are like little drawing pieces, mark making pieces. And so I'm using archival black ink and just stamping around in some of the areas. And what I'm trying to do is just make a interesting, colorful, kind of like a master board. I'm going to cut little teeny tiny small pieces out of this, and I want areas of interest. I want areas that have lots of color and pattern. And the last thing I did, I guess I haven't done it yet. Anyway, I'm getting out my pieces that I've bought from Amazon. These are bezels, and I bought some bracelet blanks, some earring blanks, and then I also bought these glass cabochons that fit inside of them. Um, and I'm measuring and I'm making myself like a little window using a piece of black paper so that I can use that little window to focus in on areas of the paper that I want to use. So I measured and I cut, and now I have this little window that I can go around and hone in on areas of the paper that I found interesting. I did want to add back in some white, so I took a white Posca pen. This is an acrylic paint pen that will dry permanent. And I splattered because I also thought that would be interesting, and I gave that a little bit of a dry before I moved on. So now I'm taking my little frame and I'm looking for areas that have multiple colors, multiple pattern, and just seem interesting. And then I'm taking a pen and drawing around my frame and then cutting out the little rectangle. It's tiny, people, tiny. And I want to make sure that it fits, so I'm putting it in the bezel, making sure that it fits. And then I am going to use, for this first one, I'm going to use some Mod Podge Dimensional Magic glue. I put that underneath the piece of mineral paper and then pressed it down really well so that it was stuck. And then I'm going to put one of these glass cabochons on. So I put some more of this Dimensional Magic glue in there. And I put the cabochon on and I'm pressing it down. Some is oozing out along the sides. I'm trying to get rid of all the bubbles underneath. And after doing this, I decided that I didn't want the cabochons. I thought they'd be super cool. And they make a very high, shiny, domed look to it, like a gem kind of, which in some applications would be really cool. Like maybe if you put some silver foil under there, something shiny. But for this, for what I was planning on doing, didn't like it. Um, it it distorted the pattern, and it also got bubbles underneath, and I just couldn't get rid of the bubbles. I pressed on it trying to get them out, and I couldn't get rid of the bubbles. So, not a fan. You can sort of see what I'm talking about in the picture, but since it's shiny, it's hard to take a picture of it. But I don't know. It's cool, but it's not what I was looking for. So I decided to move on. I need to make 7 bracelets because there are 7 people plus myself in the design team. And these are the little gifts that I made for everyone for the design team this year. So I moved on. I decided to find some other areas of interest and cut out some more little pieces. And this is repetitive. I'll speed it up here in a second. Um, I I got out resin. Now, this is ice resin, and one part of it has turned kind of an amber color. They used to both be clear, and so I was worried about using the resin because I thought it might distort the color. But once I mixed the two parts together, now you mix 2 parts together in equal amounts. You need to carefully measure, and this is like a little medicine cup that you would use for liquid medicine. So I very carefully poured the first part and then the second part in equal parts on there. And then you've got to mix it. And this looks like I'm mixing it really fast because it's sped up, but actually I'm carefully mixing it. If you really were to speed it up and mix it that fast, you'd get a lot of bubbles. And I did get some bubbles. You can deal with that though. So it's not a problem. So then now I'm trying it with resin. I take some tape and tape down my bracelets so that it doesn't move on some nonstick craft sheet in case I make a mess. The resin just peels off this Teflon craft sheet, so you don't have to worry about it. I put some in there, put my little piece of mineral paper down, and then I fill up the bezel with the resin. Now you keep seeing me using a heat tool. I'm not using a heat tool to dry it. You just have to let it dry overnight. That's just what you have to do. But for some reason, when you apply heat to it, it pops the bubbles. It makes the bubbles rise to the surface and they pop. So this I like a lot better. You can see the pattern color design of the piece underneath there. And so that's what I decide to do. Um, I get out more of my blanks, my little bezel blanks. These were fairly inexpensive. They're not silver, they're not real metal. They're um, costume jewelry. So they weren't super expensive. I think it's like 5 of them for $12 or something like that. And I'll put a link to what I got on Amazon down below. I also have some earring ones, and you'll see those as well. So I'm putting tape onto the Teflon sheet, sticking down all my little bracelets. There's 7 total. I end up making more than that. There's 8. Oh, I got to make one for my potential daughter-in-law. Oh, I've got to make one for my goddaughter. Oh, I've got to make one for myself. Oh, I've got to make one for my friend. I just keep making them. Besides, I had enough in that little cup to make all of them. So taking my little frame, cutting out more pieces here and there, and just moving the frame around, looking through it so that I can see exactly what I'm going to get. Rather than just cutting a bunch of pieces, I'm specifically looking for certain things, certain patterns, certain interest, and That's what the little frame is for. So I recommend you do that if you're going to make a jewelry like this. This was super easy. It wasn't very expensive and it was a great little gift. I could put them in those little gel printed envelope gift sacks and send them away with a card for gifts for the Gina B. Ahrens design team from 2019. Yep, that's what I did. Hopefully they've all received them so that they don't see this video and find out what their present is. If they haven't received them, that's bad because I mailed them quite a while ago. So I decided to make some earrings as well. I find areas that are similar and then try to make them match up because, you know, you want the earrings to be somewhat the same, right? And I'm still putting resin in there to stick down the pieces. But what I find as I'm experimenting here is that the resin that I'm putting on top and the resin that I put underneath somehow communicate with each other, and it was making the paper pull up in the corners instead of sticking down. So I changed my glue and went back to the Mod Podge Dimensional Magic to stick the pieces down to the bezels, and then did that before I put the resin in on top to fill up. I also found that if the resin gets somewhere you don't want it, it can be on the metal, it can be picked off after the fact, like scraped off with the side of a blade or something. I was trying to clean it up with my little toothpick, but the more I tried to clean it up, the more I made it spill out. So I decided that that wasn't maybe the best thing to do. And I just left them alone, let them dry overnight. That is the hardest thing for me to do ever. I constantly am trying to fuss with things, touch things up. Um, that's a problem that I have. So uh, it's better to just leave it alone, let it sit, let it dry, stop messing with it, stop sticking your hand in it and then having to fix it. So there's pictures at the end that you will see. I made I made three sets, two purple ones and one orangey yellow one that had happened to have a star shape from the stamping sets to give away to my friends. And then I made 7 bracelets, 8 bracelets. Yeah, 8 bracelets, I think. One of them has the cabochon on it. And then I made the 7 for the team. So this is just a continuation. Oh, also, I forgot. I tried some things with the rainbow alcohol ink. In some of the little pieces, like especially if I was trying to make a set, one of them had the rainbow alcohol ink, the other one didn't. So I put a drop on there. And then I realized, because I know that you can color resin with alcohol ink, I figured out that I could just drop it right on top and it made it interesting. Like it reacted with the resin and sparkled out, made kind of like a sunburst effect when you drip it right on top of the resin. So a couple different ways of doing it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please remember to give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment or question below. I'm not a resin expert, so if you're going to ask me a real expert question, I'm probably not the one to ask. I've used the resin before. I've used it to seal like collages by pouring it over the top and also to do jewelry before, but I haven't done it a ton. But this worked really well. I was really happy with the final result. And I hope that the people that receive them were also happy with them. I think they're really cute. The blanks have a little lobster claw on one side and then a chain on the other, so they're adjustable. So you can make it real tight if you have a small wrist, or you can hook it a few links down the chain if you have a larger wrist. So I thought they were really cool. And there's a lot of other bezel blanks out there on Amazon. And now I'm kind of wondering if maybe I want some more different shapes. I love the earrings that I kept for myself. They're like kind of purple and green and teal, and they have the rainbow stuff in them, and they're super sparkly and super pretty, and I have a matching bracelet. So I did make something for myself. I was making a lot already, so I went ahead and made one for myself. So I think so you can see me trying to touch up, trying to fix. And then with the toothpick, it is a good idea to have a toothpick because you can spread the resin into the corners and press down the corners if they're not quite sticking down. Um, and then I drip another drip on top. This stuff is self-leveling and self-doming, so it does make a nice domed, clear top on it, but not as high as the glass cabochon, and not as distorting as the glass cabochon. So I now wished I hadn't got those glass things. I didn't need them. I just thought they were going to be cool, and they didn't turn out to be as cool as I thought. So I'll have to come up with something other way to use them. So at this point, my resin is starting to get a little bit thick. I probably should have glued all the things down and then did the resin, all at once. But instead, I was kind of flipping back and forth. And you do have a long work time with the resin, but it did start to get a little bit thick by my last one. And I didn't use it all up, so I should have made a smaller amount, even though it seemed like a teeny tiny amount. Here I am putting the rainbow alcohol ink from Marabou on there. So that's it for me. Here comes your close-ups. Bye-bye.